What did Jesus do when he found his heart being troubled? How did he deal with that? How did he fight to regain his interior peace in the midst of his turmoil and his suffering and his pain? He prayed. He went to the Garden of Gethsemane and he prayed in the midst of his sorrows. And the Gospels tell us that his prayer brought him eventually light, strength, and consolation. Now, you and I don't always find interior peace right away when we look for it in prayer. Sometimes our prayer is a battle, especially when we find that God's will doesn't go along with our natural preferences. But Jesus is telling us that if we persevere in prayer, and if we develop day by day a truly mature life of prayer, then we will be able to experience his peace in our hearts. St. Luke has a truly amazing line in his description of this scene. He writes in chapter 22, verse 44, Jesus was in such agony, and he prayed so fervently. As Jesus' suffering intensified, so did his prayer. And in that same passage in verse 40, Jesus tells his followers to do the same thing. Pray, he says to the disciples, that you may not undergo the test. Jesus' first reaction to the stirring up of trouble in his heart was prayer. And we need to learn to make that our first reaction too. St. Paul learned this lesson, and he taught it to his fellow Christians in Philippi with one of the most amazing passages in all of his letters. Have no anxiety at all, but in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, make your requests known to God. Then the peace of God, that surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Prayer. Turning to God whenever we feel our hearts threatened with worry, fear, anger, anxiety, or any other trouble. This is the second tool that Jesus gives us in the Garden of Gethsemane to cultivate interior peace. And of course, we will be much better at using this tool in crisis times if we have formed a healthy habit of prayer in non-crisis times.